Ladies and gents, boys and girls, what is up? Happy Friday, December the 8th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show, and we have got a jam-packed show for each and every single one of you guys. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in here on this Friday. I see Austin Gregory, Ethan K, Skyland, Juice's NIL is back in the chat. I'm sure begging for pennies as normal. Travi, Xavier, Madison, Duncan, what's going on? Also, those who are in our Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel. The TDC Questions channel. To be sure, your questions are answered there. Again, guys, lots to get into here on this Friday. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support all week long, guys. It means the world throughout the madness that is transfer portal, NIL, everything that has taken place this week. Again, guys, lots to discuss, lots to get into. We continue along with our SEC team reviews, if you will, talking each and every single SEC team, their season that was, if they have a bowl game, previewing that game as well. Our good friend today, Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports, he will join the show to talk all things LSU and talk about their upcoming bowl game and the ReliaQuest Bowl against the Wisconsin Badgers. Also, guys, I'm going to talk some Florida Gators football because it just stood out to me over the last 24 hours or so. Shit's hit the fan in Gainesville. I mean, really, truly, this ETN transfer news. Then you look on social media. I don't think I can get on social media at this point without seeing some former player attacking some fan, attacking some player, this person, that person. And it's only turned up the heat on Billy Napier after a 5-7 season. Guys, I'll give my full thoughts. And what's Billy got to do next year? I mean, his days, they feel like they're numbered down there in Gainesville. We'll talk about the state of Florida football, guys. Also, of course, end of show, taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well in our daily mailbag segment. And we are kicking off the show, as we do every Friday, our good friend Jake Crain of Crain & Company joining us in just a second. Guys, just before we get him on, be sure, hey, you're on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out there. And, guys, follow along on social media, of course. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs, whether it be X, it be Facebook, it be Instagram, it be TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is, wherever you get your content, you can find us there at the Spurs Up Show. Guys, with that being said, I appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We're going to go ahead and bring him on. He joins us every single Friday, one of the best in the business, and now someone I am excited to call a movie star as well, our good friend Jake Crain of Crain & Company. Jake, what's going on, my man? Been a great week for you and the Crain & Company boys.
Man, first off, Chris, I appreciate the kind words, my friend. Yeah, man, it's been unbelievable. Obviously, with what's going down in the college football world, it sucks now. We only have one game on Saturday and have to wait until the 16th when the Bowls get kicked off. And then obviously we debuted our movie, Lady Ballers. It's the #1 streaming movie in the country right now. It's the biggest thing the Daily Wire's ever done. And yeah, man, it's been a good week, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Lady Ballers is crushing, man. In case people don't realize, I unfortunately have not seen it yet. I'm going to get around to it, Jake, but it's crushing. It's absolutely crushing.
I appreciate
it. So congratulations
You'll laugh
to you guys.
because you know me. You'll laugh because you know me. But yeah, Austin, I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, it's it's the first time I've ever acted in anything. I tell people ask me, after, like, how hard is it? I'm gonna tell you right now, Chris, what we do doing a live show is harder than acting. And I'm not saying I'm the greatest actor of all time, but to me, what I think doing what we do is the best, preparation for it, because you can say, hey, stop, let's start over. Can't do that in our business.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy, Jake, just thinking about all that's happened this week, and it feels like it was so much longer ago that the SEC championship took place and the college football playoff selection show, because, I mean, it really speaks to the madness that is the portal and NIL, and there's been, I feel like, so many stories and so much focus on that. But really quickly, before we get into the chaos, you mentioned Army-Navy. The game is tomorrow. What does that game mean to you? Is it a must-watch for you on a yearly basis? I mean, it's obviously really, really special. It has its own day, and I know it means different things to different people. But when you think Army, Navy, what do you think of specifically?
Well, to me, it's almost like a holiday. Like it's like it's appointment television every year for me because my grandfather served in the Navy. Yeah, he was at Pearl Harbor. So it's special to me. I always root for Navy, but to me, I think it symbolizes one of the things that we value in this country. It represents guys who are willing to do more than just go play football. They're doing something that's bigger. Is it the most thrilling game to watch? No, but I love the pageantry. You see each side all dressed up in their uniforms. And when I was at South Alabama, we played at Navy in Annapolis. Man, it was one of the coolest experiences that I got to have in the coaching realm and overall. So yeah, man, it's and also it's the only game that's on. Let's be honest. I mean, we had like 85 straight days of football, and then they're like, all right, that's it, done. No more for at least a couple weeks. So yeah, man, I'm gonna watch it and I always enjoy it. Hate betting it. It's the hardest game, one of the hardest games to bet to me. But yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, Jake. We're trying to wean an addict off, right? You have just this months and months of college football, and then we just go cold turkey, it feels like, for a couple weeks. So I'm sure you've had withdrawals, as have many others this week. Let's talk some college football, though. Again, it feels like it was forever ago just because this week has been chaotic, to say the least. But on Sunday, the College Football Playoff Committee, the Final Four are set. They make their selections. Of course, the big drama, Florida State being left out. I think I heard you, Jake, go on Mark Ryan's show. Remember you just said this on your airwaves and said that the regular season, like they shouldn't even played the season. It meant nothing. Your thoughts on the selection? I think what finally happened, though, Jake, was a flawed system was exposed. Like it finally, for the first time, I can't believe how long it took. It just didn't work itself out in the end. The committee was tasked with making damn near an impossible decision because I've been, and I'll ask you this separately, actually. I've got a question I want to ask you, but initial reaction, thoughts to Florida State, an undefeated Power 5 champion, being left out.
Well, I don't think the committee had that hard of a decision. I don't look, and you know me, I'm the biggest SEC guy. I believe the SEC is obviously the hub. It's the best. There's a reason the slogan is "It just means more." But this wasn't comparing equal footing. If you had an undefeated Michigan, they're in, an undefeated Washington, they're in, an undefeated Florida State, they're in, and then it comes down to the one-loss teams. It comes down to Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. To me, Alabama had just beat Georgia, just like Texas. Should jump out, and Texas as well. Texas should have jumped Alabama, right? Alabama should have been ahead of Georgia, and they all should have been ahead of Ohio State. I thought, here's the thing. This really means the regular season means nothing. We're not talking about we're not talking about Liberty getting left out. We're talking about a Power 5 team in a Power 5 conference that went 13-0, won their conference championship, beat two teams from the conference that jumped them. The ACC had a better record against the SEC than the SEC did against the ACC. And everybody goes back to the one factor in the criteria, right, that says if there's an injury. Why does everybody think that one factor just jumps all the other factors? If in those rules it said, if all else is even, this is a huge factor that usurps the other ones. Okay, I can say, all right. If Alabama had finished 12-1 and Florida State would have finished 12-1, put Bama in. If Alabama would have finished 13-0 and Florida State would have finished 13-0, if we'd had 5 undefeated teams, leave Florida State out. I would agree with that, but that's not what we're arguing. We're arguing a 12-1 team versus a 13-0 team in the Power 5. And just because one of those factors lines up with making the convenient choice, because that's what it was, they did it because they could, Chris. We're going to a 12-team playoff next year. They'll never have this problem again. We will never argue over an undefeated Power 5 conference champion again. We'll argue about who the 12th seed is. We'll argue about who the 11th seed is. Maybe this team should have been a 6th seed or instead of a 7, but they're all still in, right? We're not going to argue a undefeated Power 5 conference champion. To me, I think what they did was they realized we're going to a 12 team. It's the SEC. It'll be a much better draw. And if nobody's been able to explain this to me. And if you say the ACC is not a Power 5 school, well, or a Power 5 conference, well, they beat y'all. Clemson beat y'all. North Carolina beat y'all. So I would kind of watch what I said about that if we're going to talk about stuff that happened on the field, right? I'll say it again. They beat Florida and LSU. The ACC had a better record, and I'm an SEC guy. I'm an SEC guy. You know that, Chris. But nobody's been able to explain this to me. If Florida State is so bad without Jordan Travis, if you can't put them in the playoff, then how in the hell did you put them ahead of Georgia and Ohio State still? Why would you keep them at the 4th spot after the Florida game? You want to know why they did it? Because they knew that would be the biggest rating selection reveal show that they've ever had. And it was. If they had dropped Florida State down earlier, if they really truly believed that, nobody would have watched. We'd have all known would Georgia get in? That'd have been the only question. And they wouldn't have. And if you believe it's just the I hate the term the 4 best teams get in. If that's the case, if Georgia played Washington on a neutral site, Georgia would be a double-digit favorite. Why is Washington in? Pac-12's disappearing. Doesn't matter. What are they going to do? Punch you back? Right? So, again, if Jalen Monroe gets hurt, or J.J. McCarthy gets hurt, or Michael Penix gets hurt, or Quinn Ewers gets hurt, then Georgia should be allowed to be in the playoff for that team, if that's what we're going to do. But you rendered the regular season void. That's what you did. And to me, that sets an awful precedent. I don't care what team it is.
It does feel like, Jake, going back to the I guess it's the bylaws or what have you, the criteria, I should say. They kind of left themselves a way out in regards to, like you mentioned, like you go back and look at the criteria. I don't have it in front of me, but significance of injury, certain player or whatever.
One though, Chris.
It is just one.
It doesn't say this is the most important one.
Right.
Like
but they left themselves that wiggle room. They left themselves where it's like, okay, they can fall back on that. I mean, I think obviously the Travis injury, I think they gave Bama the benefit of the doubt because of strength of schedule, because FSU's mid-50s, Bama's is like top 10 strength of schedule. And I think also they didn't want to feel the backlash of the SEC being left out. And that was my question for you, Jake. My question for you, Jake, there has been backlash, there's been outrage. But I'm curious, do you think there would have been more backlash and outrage had FSU gotten in and Bama got left out? Or do you think it would have been more with the way it currently is? I just can't imagine the SEC getting left out.
Yeah, I think it depends on who are you saying is outrage. Like the media outrage, I think there would have been more. But that scenario you just laid out would never happen. You think they would have left an undefeated Bama team out for a 12-1 Florida State? That would never happen in a trillion years. If the roles were reversed, you would have got an opposite outcome of what you've got. It's very simple, right? Alabama is better for college football ratings, for lead up to all the previews, the shows, right? The commercials, right? Yeah, I think I saw, and again, don't quote me on this, but I think I saw a report that with Alabama getting in, it'll net an extra $150 million in a company in ESPN that's having to lay people off left and right, that's attached to Disney, that's falling apart faster than a Post Malone song. Like, I follow the bouncing balls here. I mean, it's just the truth.
And so it's a perfect segue, Jake, into the 12-team playoff. And I mean, I think it's interesting. Even people who have been opposed to it are now like, well, it's the lesser of the two evils, because what you can't have happen. I think the thing that surprised me the most, too, was that it wasn't like we were talking about an undefeated Louisville. We're talking about the brand of Florida State, which is as strong as any brand in college football, college sports. Them getting snubbed. I think that's what's really, really interesting. And to your point, Jake, I mean, it goes to show that the committee, they are throwing crap at a wall and hoping it sticks. Like the fact that FSU was still ranked a spot ahead of Georgia, that really was what showed me that you just have no idea. Because to your point, if it's really about 4 best or about ranking the best, well, Georgia's a better team than Florida State. I think they're going to show that in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's just, even if those teams are full strength. So it's kind of make it up as you go along. And I think the committee got put in a situation where they actually had to make a decision, didn't work itself out. And it blew up in their faces. So, I mean, I to your point, you say it wasn't a tough decision, though. It should have been FSU. I mean, what do you say to the people that push back, though, that like you watch you're a football guy. You watched Florida State the last 2 weeks. You couldn't watch them the last 2 weeks, say they were the same team or they were one of the 4 best teams in college football. They just looked different.
Well, they did. But again, you won 2 games by double digits. You went down to Florida with the backup quarterback and beat them by double digits. The same team that beat the hell out of Tennessee. Then you go play a Louisville team that's not your run-of-the-mill Louisville team. They're actually pretty good up front. You're playing with a kindergartner at quarterback. Tate Rodemaker is coming back. You know what's amazing? It's everybody talks about, oh, well, this is backlash for TCU getting destroyed by Georgia, right? I remember TCU beating Michigan. Like, everybody just glosses over that fact. Like, I'm looking at Ryan right in the chat saying that Alabama's just as deserving. Listen, I'm not a mathematician, man. I'm not. I won't claim to be. Once they start putting different letters in it, I've got no clue. But I know 13 is more than 12. That's what I do know. This isn't an even comparison, right? You can't sit here and just invent numbers. Okay, 2 plus 2 can't equal 5. We all know what happened. It's no secret. Right? Like, I don't think, and it's going to work out for them. And I'm excited to watch the game. But you talk about strength of schedule. I mean, look at Washington, right? If we're going to sit here and say deserving and who's better, you find contradictories all in it. Contradictories all over the place. And I get it. You're, as an SEC school, if you're a fan of an SEC school, this is good for you. You want this. You want the benefit of the doubt. So you're probably going to defend it. But that's not what I do. I'm going to tell you what I actually think. Bama would walk FSU right now. I agree with that. But I think Georgia would walk Washington. I think they'd walk them all over the yard. They'd stomp the yard. I mean, it's so, again, why is Washington in? Then Washington shouldn't be in.
And again, Jake, I just followed up with this. Like, I've been a 12-team playoff guy, or at least an expanded playoff guy. Were you also on that, or is this one of those things where now it's like, you know what? I hated the idea, but we got to have it because this can't happen again. Or were you always in favor that we need more than 4? Well, here's my thing, Jake. 4 spots, 5 Power 5 conferences. It never made sense.
No, and it's funny now because we're about to go to 4. We're about to be Power 4 conferences after the Pac-12. Whatever goes on over there, I don't think it's going to be a Power 5 conference. But when I wanted the 8 team, I thought 8 was perfect. And this is back with the Power 5. So I thought you'd have your conference champion, right, in the Power 5. Those 5 spots are in. You win the conference championship game, you're in with those 5 spots. What I wanted to do was have a separate top 25 for the group of 5 and the Power 5. And whoever finishes number 1 at the end of the year in that group of 5 top 25 gets that 8th spot. Like getting a 16 seed, right? You play number 1. That's the reward for finishing number 1. You get to play the group of 5 team that finished number 1 in the top 25. So that leaves you with 2 at-larges. So you'd have that now with a Power 4 conference. If you went to 8, you'd add an extra at-large. So I always thought that method was the best. Going to 12, I know it's going to keep increasing because they're going to make more and more money. I want it to be at 8, so then maybe it could go to 12, and it would take longer before we started really messing with the regular season. But all that doesn't matter now because the regular season doesn't matter. So screw it. We'll see.
Yeah,
it'll be
Jake,
great TV.
that is
Chris,
yeah.
I do want to say this. I hope the parity we had this year, because this was the anomaly. We haven't had a year like this, and so I hope this is the new norm, right? I hope we don't go back to just one dominant team, maybe 2. I mean, we legitimately down the stretch had 8 teams you're looking at that could possibly win a national championship. I just hope that is the new normal.
You really, Jake, open a can of worms with that last segment there with the group of 5 stuff. I've been saying forever, man, because I'm somebody, I grew up vacationing in the Appalachian Mountains with family. And so Boone, North Carolina was a place that we frequented. And so I always had a soft spot for Appalachian State. I remember watching App State win 3 straight national titles with Armani Edwards and those great teams they had. And I remember when they went to, they moved up a level, and I just thought it's a shame. It's such a shame because while they're going to have increased revenue money, they're never going to do that again because a team like Appalachian State should not be playing for the same trophy that Alabama is.
I agree. Chris, I agree. That's why I think you should give them that 8th spot.
Because in my opinion, there should be a group of 5 playoff. I mean, I know they'll never do it.
I agree with that. If you're not going to give them that 8th spot, and there's no chance in hell that anybody – and Cincinnati, that was great to see. They were never winning it. They were never going to win it. But when you look at the group of 5, yes, and it's funny, we've had multiple group of 5 head coaches on Crain and Company, and it's like split down the middle. Like half of them want the playoff. Like Bryant Vincent, who was the interim at UAB, was the OC at New Mexico, just got hired to be the head coach at Law Monroe, is a good friend of mine. He wants the playoff, right? He wants to be able to win a national championship. You're never going to win a national championship at a group of 5 place unless two things happen. One, you get that 8th spot and just get a chance in the playoffs, right? Maybe somebody gets hot. We've seen 6 teams beat one in basketball. I know it's a totally different sport. Or you have your own playoff and you go win it. But like Bryant Vincent wants it. Clay Helton at Georgia Southern doesn't want it. So I just don't understand why you wouldn't want it. Because you're never going to win it. Like, it's the truth.
And if you don't have that, I mean, the best thing you can have in your trophy case outside of a conference championship for your respective conference is like the Sunshine Bowl or whatever the heck the name of the bowl game is.
Like
that
Tulane won
too.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
You know, like that. There you go. That's as good as you'll get to kiss her, right? But that's as far as you're going to get.
It's a good way of putting it. Let's talk really quickly, Jake. Again, it feels like it happened forever ago, but your biggest takeaways from the SEC championship. I had to eat crow. I doubted Bama all year long. The evolution of them as a football team from what we saw early to that game was impressive. And I think it was just a reminder that, you know, while Kirby Smart is the heir apparent, I think Nick Saban is still the king in college football.
Well, you know, I think Georgia made more mistakes than Alabama did. I mean, you look at the turnovers, you know, or the turnover down in the red zone. In that game, it was going to be decided by 3 to 5 plays. That game was always going to be decided by 3 to 5 plays. That's how much talent is that on that field. I will say, you know, I compared Alabama's offense and Georgia's offense and said, if each one of them were actors, what type of actors would they be? Alabama's more improvisational, right? And you saw that in the game. The shovel pass with Jalen Milroe on 3rd down, him creating outside the pocket, led to one of their touchdowns. Georgia's more of the method actor. They are consumed by their identity. And every time that Georgia would do something, right, it was almost like that Michigan-Ohio State game. Every time somebody would do something, there would be an answer. I think that's Alabama was able. We always say in baseball, right, you want to score and then stop them, right? Score and then stop them. Well, if they score, you want to answer, right? They score, we score. They score, we score. That's what we saw from Alabama. And Georgia made the mistakes down the stretch that allowed Alabama to be able to maintain that lead. And yeah, I mean, going back to even the missed field goal off the false start at the beginning of the game, that's a big mistake, right? That in that game, that matters. So look, hats off to Alabama. I thought they deserved to win the game. I thought they played better. It was a shame Brock Bowers and Ladd are as hurt as they were, because we know what this Georgia team can do with when those guys are healthy. I'll be interested to see what Carson Beck does. See if he comes back. I think he will. But it was, man, it's always a tough game to pick. It always is. So, you know, hats off to Bama, and it's tough for Georgia. I mean, 29-1. I wonder what that's like.
Yeah, and we think about, too, I mean, again, why I'm so happy to see the expanded playoff, because you watch that game. Those were 2 of the 4 best teams in college football. There's just no question. So I'm glad that next year Georgia will still have a shot. And I know people love these games with no safety net. It's all the line. But at the same time, it's like, why shouldn't Ohio State get a shot? They lost to the number 1 team by, 3 points or 7
on the
or whatever it was? On the roads. I mean, it's like –
they would be favored over Washington.
Right.
Aren't they in?
Yeah, exactly. Jake, transfer portal, NIL, have you been, I know from the national perspective, right? And like, even from a more local perspective or even an SEC perspective, it's so much to keep up with, where it's like, let me know who signs. Like, you can't even keep up with all the visits and everything. I mentioned this morning though, Jake. It's I guess one of the sad parts is like, it has completely just, I mean, recruiting to me, the high school ranks, it's never meant less than it does now. And it's never been a worse time to be a 3-star or lower player in the high school ranks than right now, because for coaches where you look in Gainesville at Billy Napier, you look at Shane Beamer, you look at Sam Pittman, like coaches within their first 5 years, it's so win now. It all happens in the portal, man. Like do you keep up with much of it? And if so, what's been your, I guess, maybe biggest takeaway or biggest surprise from this week? Has there been a name that shocked you? Because I mean, it's we're only on our 5th day in it, and I mean, we've got over, I think, like 2,000 players in the portal already.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I think the saddest part is nothing shocks me with the transfer portal anymore. I mean, I'm emotionally nothing surprises me. Yeah. Like there's not one person that could get in the portal that I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Because you can't bank on like playing time. Like I mean, dude, has being the starting running back at South Carolina ever mattered less? They can't keep a starting running back to save their freaking lives. 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I just it's added such a huge element to the coaching staff and what you have to do. You have to re-recruit your players. And listen, when it comes to the transfer portal, there's a reason that the NFL just doesn't have 1-year contracts, and then everybody just goes back and then they pick a team. That's what it feels like in college football right now. And the problem is, it's not only that, it's you can play 12 years of college football now. I mean, who knows? You got some guys playing 6-7 years. Like at some point, we got to get back to you have 5 years to play 4. That's what you have. And I think you let the transfer portal out with no rules, and then you wonder why it's hectic and crazy. Right now, it's a smart business decision. If I'm good at all, to go in the transfer portal and then just start negotiating with people and try and get the best price. I'd be stupid not to do that. And that may mean going back to my old school, but just we have created true free agency, unrestricted free agency. And it is out of control, but I can fix it, Chris. I can fix it. And you know what? I don't know if you can fix it now because you let it out. You're just going to get lawsuit after lawsuit. It's going to be all woe is me. But what should happen is you have 5 years to play 4. That's what you have. All right. If you're going to have this transfer, we need to get rid of the grad transfer. We need to get rid of it. You have 5 years to play 4. So if you want to transfer, you get 1 free transfer. If you want to transfer from LSU to Utah, go ahead. If you want to transfer from Boise to Tulane, go ahead. If you want to transfer within the same conference, you have to sit a year. Unless your head coach was fired, retired, or resigned, or he's not there. Just the head coach, not the offensive coordinator, not the director of football ops, not the DC, the head coach. You have 1 free transfer outside of the conference that you're in. And unless the head coach is fired. That's what we need to do. That will bring some order to it. But we never talk about the kids that get in the transfer portal and then go nowhere and don't play anymore. And then we never talk about the high school kid that because Dylan Gabriel's in year 11, right, he's not going to get a scholarship. So there's a lot going on. College football is an unserious sport right now, except on the field, right? And we still have referees running over to videos to do reviews instead of just listening, which is the dumbest thing of all time. I don't know why there's not more backlash against that. It's 2023. Elon's landing rockets on platforms in the Indian Ocean upside down. Can we please, for the love of God, just have somebody tell the referee what the call is? He doesn't need to jog his 53-year-old self over there to watch the video. They're going to tell you what the call is anyway.
I never thought about that, Jake, but that's a good point. That's a really good point. It adds to the dramatics, Jake. It adds to the dramatics.
Yeah, it gives you more commercials. And they love the slowest reps. Yeah. They probably tell them to run slow. You know?
Sheesh.
Yeah.
I think the solution is great, Jake. I'll ask you this because you mentioned college football has never been more unserious, I guess is what you said, except on the field. I would say the business of college football has never been better. College football, from a standpoint of like what you and I do content-wise, has never been better because you never run out of things to talk about. Do you worry about, from the fan standpoint, that it's never been worse and that some people may start to check out from the fan standpoint?
I think college football is so strong. Like it would take some huge political stance to really turn to something crazy like that. I don't think people are going to stop watching. What I do worry, though, is that with all the transfer portal stuff, with people coming in and out, you kind of lose that attachment to, hey, man, you decided to come to Columbia, South Carolina. Like you're one of it. You lose that kind of local attachment that separates, I think, college football from the NFL. Players come and go in the NFL. Free agents, you pick them up. They're in all the big cities, Dallas, New York, Philadelphia. I mean, we're talking about Auburn, Alabama. We're talking about Oxford, Mississippi. We're talking about Columbia, South Carolina. And I think what makes the passion so passionate is that local feel. And I feel like the more we make this a merry-go-round, the worse it's going to get. And I worry about the government getting involved in college football too. Like that's the other thing that stunk about these rules being let out with are these big shifting things, the transfer portal and NIL with no rules, is that now the only way to change it is to get the government involved. And that ruins everything. They ruin everything they touch. I don't want them to touch college football. So it's that's what I worry about. And of course business is good because they cut all the regulations. Business tends to do better when there's less rules.
Jake, your feelings on bowl season. You'll have folks tell you it's meaningless. They don't mean anything. You're a college football junkie, right? Like you're going to watch all the bowl games? Or do you wait till the SEC bowl games or the bigger?
Yeah. No,
okay, so you bet on it. Okay, there's a rooted interest there then. I don't know if you have the slate in front of you, but I mean, non-SEC bowl game, most off-the-radar bowl game that you're excited about? Is there one? I mean, obviously James Madison is playing. I'm sure you're back on that wagon. Is there an off-the-radar, under-the-radar bowl game that you're sneaky excited about? Sneaky excited even just to bet on?
Outside of the SEC, Liberty,
Oregon. Not a major bowl game. Not a major bowl game.
Not a major one?
Just like really. One of the first
not
couple.
Really, because I don't know who's playing. Like, nobody's
Fair
playing.
Enough.
Like, I mean, there's not one that just, jumps off at me like, man, I got to watch it. I always enjoy watching UNLV play, right? Just because of that style of offense that they run. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I believe they play, I don't think it's Oklahoma State. I forgot who they play, but it's going to be an interesting matchup. I don't think they're going to be able to stop them defensively. But no, man, here's what I think. I hate the bowl tie-ins. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like the Bulls should just be able to pick whoever they want. Like, I feel like these tie-ins, they're so played out. Like, it's so played out. Because while you do get different matchups, you really get, like, a lot of the same. I feel like the bowl game should be able to pick. I think that would make it more fun. I think you'd have fans that get to go to different destinations. I think we see that. That's what's cool about college basketball with all these preseason tournaments. Like, you're always going to a different one. Like, you're in Maui, or you're in, like, the Dominican Republic, or you're in, like, New York or something. Like, there's always a different one, and you're able to go and see that stuff. But no, not really. And the transfer portal has helped kill bowl games. Like, it really has. I mean, if we're going to be honest, how many quarterbacks are not playing for the team? There's going to be some unders. I'm going to stake so many unders, it's going to be ridiculous, which sucks. I hate rooting for unders, but I'd be doing myself and everybody else a disservice that tails me if I didn't.
To your point, Jake, by the way, UNLV in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. This is December the 26th. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl. December the 26th, Tuesday night, 9 Eastern time kickoff. They will take on the Kansas Jayhawks.
Yes, that's right.
Kansas.
That's right.
Yeah, that should be a fun one. I know we're all looking forward to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
Sure.
So Bama, Michigan is the obvious answer. So Jake, I'll ask you, outside of that game, SEC bowl game you're most looking forward to. I think Ole Miss, Penn State is fascinating. Ole Miss, Jake, they win that game. It'll be the first time in Rebels football history. They won 11 games in a season. I think obviously what a win, Missouri, Ohio State, what a win from Mizzou would do.
That's the one, buddy. That's the one.
Yeah. Georgia, Florida State, what version of those teams show up? Game you're most excited outside of Bama, Michigan, which I think is the obvious.
Yeah, I think Missouri, look, Ole Miss has a huge opportunity, right? Penn State's a big brand. But Missouri has a chance to beat Ohio State, who has basically, more guys in the portal than Mortal Kombat right now. So, but it's still Ohio State. Like 100 years from now, people will be like, man, you remember that time Missouri beat Ohio State? And nobody's going to be like, oh, man, they had everybody in the portal. No. That you have a chance coming off a 10-2 year after you gave your coach a 2-year extension. And people were questioning about it. You're going to bring back your quarterback. You're going to bring back your best offensive player and Luther Burden Jr., who are both sophomores. And you get a chance to beat an Ohio State team with a hand tied behind their back. That's recruiting gold. That's recruiting ammunition to be like, hey, guess what? Yeah, Texas and Oklahoma's coming in here, but we just went 11-2 and beat Ohio State. And we have our best players coming back. So I think this could be a huge springboard into what could be a big transfer portal season for Missouri, and a really nice finish in recruiting for Drink going into next year when Texas and Oklahoma are in. So I think that one's massive. Obviously Florida State without Jordan Travis, and they've already had some guys get in the portal. I think Carson Beck's coming back for Georgia, right? I think you're going to have a lot of Georgia guys that end up playing in this game because they don't want to go out with a loss. So yeah, those, the others on the periphery, cool, sweet. I'll watch them.
Jake, do you dare hammer the under in the Tennessee-Iowa game? I think that number's 36 and a half.
Yeah. Yes. Who's starting? Is Joe Milton starting at quarterback?
Yes. I would assume yes.
Yes. I will take the under in that game. If Iowa's playing, I will take the under in that game.
Yeah. It's just hammered the under for the
hit every under for Iowa. He's taking it every single week, even the 24.5.
They can't put it low enough. I took it that week too. They can't put it low enough. They just literally can't put it low enough.
It's 10-3. Incredible. That's one of the greatest coaching jobs. I don't care if it's the Big Ten West.
Jake Crain and Crain and Company, always a pleasure. Jake, I appreciate you taking the time, my friend. It's been a blast this college football season, obviously, and now we move into bowl season. It's been great to have you on. I had one last thing. This is what it was. I was like, what is it I wanted to ask? Heisman Trophy ceremony tomorrow. Jaden Daniels, he's got to be the winner, right? And if not, who is?
I have Jaden Daniels 1 and Jordan Travis 2. If Jordan Travis is so good, is so incredibly, unbelievably good that an injury derails their whole undefeated season, right? Then he has to finish top 2 in the Heisman, right? Has to. But Jaden Daniels, you got to give it to him. If Bo Nix would have gone off in that Pac-12 championship game and Oregon would have won, I think Bo would have a legitimate shot at it, but he didn't, and they didn't. I don't think Penix did enough numbers-wise to combat what Jaden did, especially when you look on the ground. I mean, it's just insane. I think anybody that really watched college football this year, it's hard not to pick Jaden Daniels. I'm rocking with Jaden.
By the way, Jake, how does the FSU this year FSU being snubbed? How does that compare to 04 Auburn when the Tigers went 13-0?
Well, to me, you had 3 undefeated teams. So, Oklahoma and USC started out higher than Auburn did. I think you can really explain that, right? When you're operating against even, like somebody has to get in, but we weren't operating on even this year. This would have been like if a 11-1 Oklahoma would have got in over 12-0 Auburn, right? So I don't think it's as comparable. I think that makes it hurt worse for FSU.
They're going to be talking about this for a long, long time down in Tallahassee, and I'm fascinated, Jake, to see how Florida State football responds to it moving forward. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. That is for sure. Jake Crain at Crain and Company, one of the best in the business. Jake, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's always a pleasure. Keep up the great work.
Always, man. Hey, you can check out Lady Ballers, the Daily Wire Plus. Go watch it. It's good stuff. But Chris, always fun to come on with you. And listen, maybe next year I'm not picking 5 and 7. You never know. I got to see how it goes in the portal. All right, I got to see. I know y'all be waiting on pins and needles. So, but no, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff, Jake. Great stuff with our good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break on the other side, though. We got more great content up for you. Okay, cool. We got more great content for you. Our good friend Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports Talks LSU, the ReliaQuest Bowl upcoming against Wisconsin. We look back on the season that was as well. Really good stuff with Blake. All that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
That's your Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, December the 8th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. Want to once again say thank you to our good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company. And guys, like I mentioned before, Jake will continue to come on our show. I'm just not exactly sure when we're going to talk to Jake again. Next week, guys, we're going to be out of town at minimum Thursday and Friday, maybe Wednesday also. That next week, though, I'll be back, and the plan is to go live all 5 days. Just got to see if Jake's able to join us that following week. I think that next Friday, what is going to be the 22nd. So some people are going to be out of town, of course. Like I mentioned, guys, just roll with the punches with the holidays, stuff like that. It gets kind of crazy. So just wanted to make you aware that that is the plan. Obviously, we got a lot of bowl games to preview. We'll start doing that probably next week. If not next week, though, I may hold off one more week until that week before Christmas, before the bowl games are taking place. We may hold off until then. That's also the week of National Signing Day. So going to be a very busy week that week. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Like I mentioned, we're bringing on guests from each individual SEC entity and breaking down their teams and talking about if they have a bowl game upcoming. We're talking about those games as well today. We're talking all things LSU Tigers with our good friend Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports, one of the best in the business. Does a great job talking all things Bayou Bengals. We talk that. Again, we break down the bowl game, and we even have some Heisman talk as Jaden Daniels is the favorite to hoist the Heisman Trophy tomorrow. So, guys, sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation with our good friend Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports. Talking all things LSU Tigers, the Bayou Bengals. An up and down season, maybe somewhat of a disappointing season in year 2 of Brian Kelly, but the LSU Tigers get ready for the ReliaQuest Bowl against the Wisconsin Badgers. New Year's Day, noon kickoff. We're going to talk that, the 2023 season. We got our good friend Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports, dare I say, the best in the business when it comes to talking all things LSU. What's going on, my man? And you know what? I always get excited because it's always an electric conversation. I always love popping into like your post-game shows or, Ruffino and Joe, whatever it is. Like it's an electric factory, man. So kudos to you. Congratulations on a great season. The content was fantastic. And again, pleasure to be doing this with you, man. How you been?
Doing good. It's funny, Chris. I feel like we were just doing this like 2 weeks ago when we were doing the preseason stuff and I got animated. And then I said, I thought Florida State scared me more than Alabama. And then I had Alabama fans that don't have teeth, by the way, that were in my mentions on X or Twitter or whatever it's called. And now it's funny because Alabama snubs them to get into the playoff, and then now we're all just full circle here. But I'm glad to be here, man. I appreciate it. I watch your post-game shows too. Dude, I tried to call in one time and I was like, he's denying my calls. But then I realized there's so many people calling in. I was going to call and be like, hey, hot damn Shane Beamer, but didn't get the chance to get in. But look, man, it's been a fun season. It's not technically over, but big weekend this weekend. Jaden Daniels potentially going to win the Heisman. So a lot of big things happening around the Bayou.
And I think thanks to you, Blake, I was maybe on the fence going into SEC media days of who was I going to pick, right? LSU, Alabama, doing my research. I liked what I saw from LSU on paper, but you, I think, really pushed me over the edge, and I have to give you credit, my friend, because I had to go eat crow after the SEC championship game, and Bama fans ate it up, man. Over 20,000 views on that YouTube video. So really, I have you to thank, because if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would have been so enthusiastic about the demise of Nick Saban and Alabama football and dancing on his grave and picking them to go 9-3. So I think I have you to thank for that. So we all had to eat some crow. We should have never doubted Lord Saban. I hate to say that. I know that pains you to say, but
oh, dude, It's funny. I don't remember that conversation. I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, look, man, he, like you said, he made us eat crow, and we never should have. I mean, Chris, it's still arguably of teams that Saban had in the postseason, either playoff or BCS, you still can make the argument it's not the best team that he's ever had. It could still be the worst team. I think, look, LSU fans are going to hate me for this. I think Nick Saban should be the coach of the year because of how he got his team. Chris, they won against South Florida 17-3. Okay. They had a last second heroic situation happen against Auburn, and then the next week they go and beat down the door and take on Georgia and beat them by 3. I mean, look, it's who they are. It's how they've always won games. But look, since week 6, Chris, on at least on Ruffino and Joe show, my co-host Joe DeLeon was like, "Oh, they're not that good. They're not that good." And I'm like, man, I've seen this story before. This man literally made me become a fan of LSU when he came here in 1999, right? And from, especially as the great rap song would say, from the 99 to the 2000s, all right? So the bottom line is I've seen Saban do it. And then week 6, after the Ole Miss game, after they get they had a punt blocked. They got the ball at the 1, and they still managed to not be able to score, and they won the football game. I'm like, look, man, this is Saban. This is just Saban. And look, Chris, we're going to do our thing on Sunday, our next show for Ruffino and Joe show. I'm picking them to win the national title. And look, man, I know that Washington's really good. I know that Texas is really good, and so is Michigan. But there's one area that all these other 3 teams not named Bama have a massive struggle in. Washington, 120th in the country in passing yards allowed. Texas is 96. Michigan, okay, what's up with their passing game in general? Good luck giving Nick a month to try to game plan against you. And here's the truth. Saban's not going to lose a rematch against Sark. So I ain't crow just like you do, okay? I should have never done it. My grandmother told me one thing in life. Never bet against Nick Saban. And here she is right here. And I shouldn't have done it, right here in the studio. Meemaw, I'm sorry, But he's going to make us eat crow even more, man. It's an impressive job by him, and I hate saying it as a LSU fan.
Saban with a extra amount of time to get ready, as you mentioned. Tread lightly when it comes to betting against Alabama. And Michigan favored in that game. Vegas is playing with fire. Absolutely. Let's get into LSU, Blake. Obviously, the 2023 season, Tigers go 9-3, 6-2 in the SEC. You talked over the summer, right? The last time that we spoke on LSU, that FSU game was the tone setter and how big that game was. And I mean, hey, Florida State turned out to be pretty damn good. Yep. And LSU went toe-to-toe with them for a while. 45-24 was the final score in that one. I feel like that first game, though, Blake, that was sort of a tell of what was to come on the defensive side, right? Because it was a historically bad year for LSU defensively. I mean, you lose in Oxford 55-49. It's solely on the defense. You look at the Alabama game, 42-28. Blake, talk about that defense. I mean, was there anything that it feels like looking at LSU, like that was the only thing that really held them back from a really special season?
Well, Chris, they're the number 1 team in the country in total offense. I mean, led by Jaden Daniels. And look, there have been games, okay, like even in 19, like we talk about the Joe Burrow and the LSU team from 19. They had a game against Auburn where they won 23-20. You're going to have games where the offense may be able to put up some yards, but for whatever reason can't get in the end zone. That's what happened to LSU in week 1 against Florida State. But, Chris, here's one thing. I said this last night on my show, okay? You can get away with your secondary being just complete cheeks. All right. You're literally looking at 2 playoff teams. One's 120th in the country in pass defense. One's 96. What you cannot do is that your front 7 be just absolutely abysmal. Because, Chris, 317 yards Ole Miss had rushing against LSU. Quinshon Judkins, remember in the beginning of the season, Chris, when everybody's like, oh, man, Quinshon Judkins, he ain't good no more. And I'm like, he going to be good against LSU. Okay, so there was a prop bet that was out there for him to have 175 rushing yards. Chris, I put $200 on the over, okay, because I knew this defense was absolute cheeks. You score 49 points and you win and you lose, and then the weeks after that, you play Missouri and you still got to score 40 plus. They can't get a stop. They're not playing Harold Perkins in the right position. So they got so many different things that they have to figure out on defense because, of course, their offense is here, right? Like Brian Kelly has never had the amount of weapons in his entire life at Notre Dame, Cincinnati, wherever. He's never had weapons like this. Malik Neighbors has caught over 160 passes plus. I think it's actually 175 or somewhere like that in 2 years for Brian Kelly. That's career 4-year stats for dudes at Notre Dame when he was there. He doesn't have dudes like that. They have 2 All-Americans along the offensive line. Malik Neighbors, Jane Daniels, first-team All-Americans. But when you're that bad in the front 7, you're not going to win in this league. You're just not going to win in this league, right? And so when you're not able to stop the run, teams like Alabama, who's getting back to good defense running the football, you play a team like Florida. Look, I don't care what anybody says. I know ATN went in the portal today, but Billy wants to run the football. Newsflash, they ran it all over our ass, and Billy Napier went 5-7. Okay, they weren't that good. So look, man, I hate that this happened, but look, they missed in the portal. You want to talk about a team that, look, portal additions helped the team, right? Like you could look at Oklahoma as an example. Portal additions helped them. Portal additions helped LSU a year ago. Man, did LSU miss this past year on defense, mainly due to the guys that the defensive coordinator, Matt House, wanted. So bye-bye, see ya, because they ain't going to happen here. I don't care what happens. Bye-bye, see ya.
That was going to be, Blake, my next question is, I mean, what was it? Because, from the outside looking in, to your point, and we talked about this off air, there's certain things at each program that historically you're good at, or there's just things that won't be tolerated. At LSU, that type of defensive performance, it will not be tolerated. So it's hard for me to wrap my brain around when you talk about Harold Perkins and some of the great other defensive guys, some of the other great talents in the front 7. Like, how did that happen? Was it House's scheme was that bad? Was it guys underachieved? I mean, what you talked about misses in the portal, but like it's hard to fathom because we just know LSU's stockpiled with talent. Like, how could they be that bad?
Well, so you have to go back to Orgeron, okay, and when Brian Kelly got in here. So, Chris, when Brian Kelly got into the building at LSU, he had 36 scholarship players, okay? They just didn't have the depth. So then they go out to the portal the year that they win the SEC West, and they get nothing but dudes from the state of Louisiana, from the transfer portal. All of them are seniors. So they're experienced. They know how to play, got talent. The DB room has dudes that are in the NFL right now. But you didn't give Brian Kelly the time on defense with the personnel to kind of build, right, and build that depth back up. But you mentioned something about things that won't be tolerated. It's not now that they don't have the depth. They had the number of depth. They don't have quality depth. And they missed on some guys that Orgeron missed on in recruiting. They were star chasing is what I call it. Oh, this guy's a 5-star. Well, he might look like a 5-star and he might look like Tarzan, but he plays like Jane, okay? He's not any good. And so when you look at Chris, their biggest issue, okay, because their secondary, they had 2 safeties at boundary corner. They were so beat up. So it's a mixture of a lot of things. Personnel, it's injuries, but the number one thing, Chris, I know that you watched the LSU Alabama game. Do we need to call Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible to get a spy on Jalen Milroe? What do we have to do to get a spy on Jalen Milroe? Oh, wait, Alabama did it, and he ran for 29. Georgia did it. He runs for 29 yards. While there is a kryptonite to Jalen Milroe, his name is Harold Perkins. So you look at scheme as, at least to me, being the number one thing. They're playing old school gap scheme football. You can't do that anymore, man. These dudes will eat you alive. And then I think it's, obviously some personnel. And look, your fans and people that know South Carolina will know this too. Jimmy Lindsey going down was a big deal, okay? Because you're shuffling at the defensive line. You don't have anybody that's ever coached that position before. You can't go to somebody else and hire somebody, okay, in good faith and say, hey, we're going to go to, Kentucky and get somebody, the D-line coach at Kentucky. You're not going to do that to Stoops, even though, never mind. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be quiet about Stoopsy, but nevertheless, it wouldn't be in good faith. So I say all that to say, like, even Jimmy Lindsey going down, Chris, I thought was a pretty massive deal too.
So, Blake, my next question is, has Matt House been fired? And if not, why? Because, fans right now are impatient. I mean, I've seen it in Columbia. It's, okay, season's over. They're all looking at their watch like, we're burning valuable daylight here with this guy in this spot.
Yeah, so I don't think.
Is there any way he comes back? Is there any way he comes back?
Well, yes, they demote him, right? Like they demote him to.
So you don't see any way that we get to 2024 and he's still the defensive coordinator. There's no way that happens.
I'm not going to say that. I think that they could elevate Bob Diaco and them being co-DCs. But look, man, Chris, you're a man, I'm a man. Sometimes pride and ego's got to come into this, and you got to say, listen, if you're going to demote me and bring somebody else up, I got to hit the road. I'm not going to say that there's absolutely no chance that he is not on this coaching staff in 2024. What I will say is, if he is, boy, look, you think A&M spent a lot of money? The Bayou, look, Louisiana is not a rich state. They will they will do what they got to do. Look, there's a reason guys like Paul Skeens get here from the transfer portal, right? There's a reason Burrow and Daniels and Angel Reese, they get here. LSU will spend money. I don't think for my sanity or the sanity. And look, Chris, it'd be one thing if he was just bad at calling defenses. I think that he's not reaching these players either. So when you're not good in that locker room and you're not good on the field, hit the road, Jack, and don't come back no more, like the old song used to say. So I'm not going to say there's no way, but if he is, I think it would be a very bad move. They have not fired him yet. He's still out recruiting. But Brian Kelly said this week, look, we can't play defense like this. And he made the joke that, hey, man, I was 3 games into a season when you're at Notre Dame and fired a guy that was in my wedding. Well, this guy wasn't in your wedding, so you need to fire his ass. That's all I got to say on. Man, we're gonna get in so much trouble. I'm gonna get so much trouble.
I love it. Blake, Jaden Daniels, I think absolutely should be the Heisman winner. What's it been like watching him this season, and how excited are you to watch him hoist that trophy on Saturday?
Very excited. You know why, Chris? Because it's one thing, all right, when you're in there, okay, and you see a guy, all right, that in 2022 took a lot of criticism from fans. Like they wanted him benched. Uh-oh. Can you see me?
You are frozen, my friend.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry.
It's the Matt House hackers.
Probably
infiltrating your feed right now.
That piece of shit. All right, can you see me
there
now?
All right, we got you. Yeah, we'll cut that out.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I just saw that I wasn't there. What was the question? Oh, Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels, yeah.
Yeah. So look, Chris, in 2022, Jaden took a lot of criticism by the fan base, by boosters, by a lot of people, and some of it rightfully so. Some of it because, and look, I'm not a political dude. Some of it had to do with LSU has never had a minority quarterback. Okay. And I think that he had to overcome some things. Okay. There were some like Rohan Davey, Jamarcus Russell, but not to this level, like not to where social media was prevalent and you could get on it. Like Rohan Davey, Jamarcus Russell never saw this stuff like on social media. So they wanted him pulled. And some of the play dictated that. But people need to understand, like Spencer Rattler when he was at Oklahoma, sometimes you got to let dudes progress, right? Like you got to let dudes play and get better. but we've seen this before in Baton Rouge. Joe sucked. Okay, the first couple games that he was here, he sucked. All right, he was under 50% completion percentage. He couldn't hit the broad side of a barn if his life depended on it. But then all of a sudden, something clicked for him. All right, something clicked for Jaden Daniels this season, and he went off. Him throwing the football, Chris, I think is a big thing, right? The thing that changes everything with him is how he can take off with his legs. Look what he did against Bama. We talked about Saban earlier. Did you know that no player ever that's went up against Nick Saban has had 300 yards and a half besides Jaden Daniels? Nobody. Not Cam Newton, not Tim Tebow, not Johnny Manziel, not Joe Burrow, right? Like there's been a lot of dudes that have tried and didn't do what he did. To me, man, I know I sound biased in saying this. I just think he's a clear-cut Heisman winner. Right? Like, and people say Michael Penix. Well, Michael Penix against Arizona State threw 42 times for like 147 yards and 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. So if you want to talk about Michael Penix, you can come to AYS Sports and we can have that debate because that's a Rudy Poo take. You don't come on, man. Like this dude's worst game was 2 touchdowns. The worst game that he had. Oh, and by the way, in that game, he had 474 yards. So again, you're talking about him doing it in the SEC too, instead of a conference that doesn't even want to be alive anymore. Look, I'm sticking up for my guy here, but I mean, it's just the truth, Chris. I mean, he's the second best player in LSU football's history, right? The second best. And I never thought in my lifetime, as I have a Joe Burrow memorial thing right here in the studio with a signed jersey, I never thought that Jesus Burrow would ever be touched again. Like I didn't think he was going to get touched again, but now I got to do the other wall and put Jaden Daniels' pretty mug on this thing. So I got Skeens, I got Burrow, and now I got to go Jaden Daniels. So I don't know, Chris. I know I'm ranting, but it's just the truth.
You're good. The 1,100 plus rushing yards is what really it's. And I think I read a stat. Jaden Daniels averaged a first down every time he touched the football. So, I mean, just think about that, how prolific he was and is. And that brings us, Blake, to bowl season. LSU takes on Wisconsin. I'll ask you this because I look at this matchup on paper, and I know it's, you and I had a conversation of the season. Hey, you're playing Army. Like, you feel like the defense of a bounce-back game. You worried at all? You said, I'd be worried if they were going up against toddlers. So, Wisconsin, Wisconsin, man, you look at these numbers. LSU scored 46 points per game. Wisconsin scoring 22.8. And we know what Wisconsin is. Big physical, wants to run the football. Luke Fickell coach team. I just don't see how the Badgers can keep up with LSU in this one. But I guess the question is Jaden Daniels going to play? Who's going to be available? I mean, that's what a lot of these bowl games are, is like, what version of these teams are we getting? And also I'll ask you this, Blake, what's the excitement level from the LSU fan base for this game? Because obviously a 9-win season in Columbia or Fayetteville, it ain't viewed the same as it is in Baton Rouge when you had aspirations of winning a national title. So overall thoughts, preview, prediction, if you like, on this ReliaQuest Bowl, which should be called the Outback Bowl, by the way.
Right. And it should, because I love Outback and I love the blooming onion. My fat butt loves a blooming onion. I've told this, and I've come pretty close to Jaden Daniels camp. I've made my peace with and saying to the fans, saying to them, I'll tell anybody that listens, Jesus Christ Almighty can come down from the heavens, and I'll tell him too, don't play. It's not worth it, right? Like, and Brian Kelly was the head coach when Jalen Smith, I think it was Jalen Smith, the linebacker, remember he blew out his knee, was like a consensus top 5 pick. Why? Now, the only way, Chris, is that Malik Neighbors, the receiver, is 22 yards away from breaking the all-time LSU receiving record. Now, that's with Burrow. I mean, that's with Chase, Jefferson, Odell, Jarvis, all the elite receivers that have come through here. I think that the only way that happens is that he plays a drive and he throws the ball 5 times to Malik Neighbors, or however many times it takes to get him 22 yards. They break the record. They run off the field. They take their pads off. I still wouldn't risk it. Like if it were a New Year's Six bowl, I could say, well, you know what? Okay. Like this is a big time bowl game. All right. Yeah, you can play in it. But like you saw Matt Corral a couple years ago too. Like he dislocated his ankle. It's not worth it, Chris. It's like, does it bother me that it's not worth it? You know, because I want to see great football games. Yes, but this dude's going to get potentially $20 million in less than 4 months. Why would he even remotely come close to risking that? So no, I don't. But in reference to the game, I don't like it personally because I think that, like I said last time, I literally think that you could go to any school in the country. I think a high school team could go score a touchdown on this defense, right? Like I mean, I don't. I mean, they've shown me nothing that would tell me that they're worth a shit, you know. And so, what are you gonna do when your back's up against the wall? You haven't responded at all year long, but it's a good. I feel like this game resembles Florida, right? Like a team that just kind of wants to not really spread you out, but they kind of want to run the football because they have to. I think Braylon Allen leads them in rushing, like close to 1,000 yards, but has double-digit touchdowns. They can't really throw the ball around, and so look, we saw a third-string quarterback at Texas A&M. Chris, there was a time in that game that he was 9 for 9 on third downs for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you mean to tell me that any quarterback in like there's probably 1,000 quarterbacks in the portal. Every one of them could throw a touchdown on LSU right now. And so I don't have any faith in what they can do defensively. And because of the fact that you don't have Jaden Daniels, I have no idea what's going to happen here. None. Like if somebody said, Blake, you gotta pick this game. Nope, no way. Because I saw Garrett Nussmeier throw for 300 yards and a half against Georgia in the SEC championship game. I also saw him throw 2 picks, one of them being a pick 6 against G5 HBCU Southern. Like, bro, he's the most bipolar quarterback that you're ever going to find on the face of the planet because he's going to go out there and just absolutely rake against Georgia, but then throw 2 picks against a G5 team, right? And so Luke Fickell's going to throw something at Lil Nuss, but it's good to see it's going to be good to see the future without Jaden Daniels too.
There you have it, folks. Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports. Blake, you're a legend. It's always a pleasure, my man. Let's definitely do it again soon. Okay, ladies and gents, that was Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports. Appreciate him taking the time. Really interesting comments there at the end, especially about Jaden Daniels. He would tell Jaden Daniels to sit in their upcoming bowl game, the ReliaQuest Bowl against Wisconsin. What are your thoughts on that? Really interesting. Really interesting. Is it worth it? Is it worth it if you are a top-notch prospect to play in a bowl game? Blake says no. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break on the other side. All hell has broken loose in Gainesville, Florida. I'll give my brief thoughts on that, guys. Then we'll move into our daily mailbag segment, taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well. All that and more, guys, on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
That's your Dougie, ho. Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, December the 8th, 2023. Guys, really exciting weekend upcoming, as I just posted. I'd probably call this, guys, the biggest recruiting weekend of Shane Beamer's tenure at South Carolina. When you talk about the pressure and what he needs to do in the transfer portal and putting together a roster that can compete and go win next year, there are a couple of difference makers on campus this weekend that South Carolina has got to score. And of course, guys, we'll be covering that. We'll be keeping tabs on everything that takes place along with the rest of the SEC. Guys, in case you missed it, also Anaya Smith, Texas A&M wide receiver. He just declared for the NFL draft. So a lot of movement, guys. Like I told Jake Crain earlier in the show, it's just nearly impossible to keep up with. It's one of those things where there's so many guys hitting the portal. There's so many guys that are visiting that it's kind of like, just let me know when these dudes commit, sign, what have you. There's so much movement, right? One day a guy's in the portal, then he's not. Of course, we found out this morning that Mario Anderson officially submitted his name into the transfer portal. He is gone. Then it, and I just dropped my phone, but then it comes out that he's got offers from Oklahoma and some other schools, and he's going to be taking a visit. Juice Wells is visiting Texas and Ole Miss this weekend. Ole Miss is actively going on their social media channels, basically trolling South Carolina. So it's a lot of movement, both good and bad, if you're the Gamecocks or a fan of the Gamecocks. But either way, a lot of difference makers that'll be visiting this weekend. You've got obviously Rocket Sanders on campus. The kid from North Texas is on campus. I think LT Overton, the D lineman from Texas A&M. There's a lot of, ACC transfers, a lot of different guys that'll be on campus. We'll see how South Carolina fares. In the meantime, guys, that being said, I wanted to touch on this, and I felt compelled to touch on this. And I think we all know the situation in Gainesville. It's dire, right? You go 5-7 in year two. There were some Gator fans, I think, that if you would have told them 5-7 in year two of Billy Napier's tenure, they would have said he was getting fired at season's end. But we all heard about the $31 million buyouts. And, I would say there were some bright spots that would make you feel like his coming back was going to be worthwhile. I'm not even really sure if in season there was a lot of that outside of the win at South Carolina. But it was felt like, you know what? You have this buyout. It's only been 2 years. Recruiting's going well. Give Billy Napier more time. And he's going to get that third year, right? That 2024 year. He's going to get that 2024 season. At least I think. The hell that has broken loose, the turmoil that has ensued over the last 24 hours or so in Gator country. And again, I felt compelled to talk about this today because I literally, guys, at this point, I cannot log on social media without seeing something about the Gators struggling and the madness that's taking place when it comes to Florida football. Of course, a lot of this stemming because the great edge player, Princely Umiamelin, I'd probably completely butchered his last name, but the Princely kid at edge, who's now the number one edge in the portal, is in. Then you're starting running back. Travis Etienne goes into the portal. Number one running back that is available in the portal. And that has really just set off a chain reaction of chaos when it comes to Florida Gators football. from former players going at current players about you ain't really a Gator. What are you about? You said Gator for life to, you got fans, a ton of the now ready to move on from Billy Napier. They want their AD, Scott Strickland, fired. Guys, admittedly, what I'm seeing right now from Florida and the fan base, it is very eerily similar. And it reminds me to a situation that we saw in Columbia, South Carolina, just a couple years ago. Now, is the situation a little bit different? Sure. What's ironic about me saying this is I'm sure Florida fans feel like, hey, this is a lot like the end of the Will Muschamp era in Gainesville. The energy feels very similar to the end of the Will Muschamp era in Columbia, South Carolina as well. It's one thing to lose games, right? It's one thing to lose games. It happens. You lose games, especially early on in your tenure when you're building a program. But when you start losing trust from your fan base, right? And it only takes, it doesn't take as much evidence as it used to, right? Again, it doesn't take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years to figure it out what you have, right? There's so many different things. And because we have so much access, right? We see everything, we follow everything, we take in everything. I feel like you find out really quickly what you have at your head coaching spot. And I know it's only been 2 seasons. And I think Billy Napier is a good head football coach. I'm not so sure he is the guy for Florida. And I like Billy Napier. I have nothing against Billy Napier. Again, I think that if it doesn't work at Florida, I think Billy Napier will be successful wherever he goes. But there's just been things, guys, that are just really hard to overcome. I mean, right, you go on the field. What happened in year 2? The damning things that took place, from the lack of organization to the self-inflicted mistakes to the special teams blunders, adding the fact, obviously, you lost to an Arkansas team that won 1 SEC game. You went 5-7. I mean, all those things. Then the off-field stuff. When you've got your best players, some of your best players jumping ship. And I know this is happening everywhere, all across college sports, all across college football. So there's a lot of fan bases that feel like, man, what's wrong with our culture? What's going on behind closed doors? Why can't we keep these guys on campus? Again, we're seeing it all across the SEC. But it doesn't help when you also go 5-7. Then you go look on social media. And I mean, dude, Gator Nation is unraveling at the seams. And I mentioned it this morning, guys, when I posted about this, and I had some Gator fans come at me sideways. And it's like, I'm not even, I mentioned that on social media about, the Gator fan base on social media looks more dysfunctional than the special teams. Obviously trying to make a crack at a joke, but it wasn't even a slight. It's just an observation as to what I've seen to this point. And it's been pure madness. Again, you look at some of these headlines. This coming from Nick De La Torre, who is a senior writer for the Gators for On 3. He said this. This is the title of an article. The Florida Gators missed a real bowl game and must play in the Public Perception Bowl, where they're down 56-0 at halftime. I mean, you then got our guys over at inallkindsofweather.com, who, again, I tagged them. And, I mean, they are ready to burn the thing down. They are ready to burn it down. In all kinds of weather. I've been quiet too long. No more. I'm coming for your job. At Scott Strickland, the AD of Florida, tagged him. You've waged war on an elite program's prestige in an attempt to shoehorn it into your pseudo-fancy bougie image. And that's just when you're not too busy covering up your coaches abusing their athletes. I mean, guys, it has really, like, the wheels have really fallen off in Gainesville. And allkindsofweather.com also says it ultimately comes down to this. Do you truly love your Gators? Do you love them enough to be willing to fight for their prosperity? Of course, it's easier to fake a smile, pretend to care, and just stop emotionally investing. But see, that won't help the program get better. They want change. What's tough, too, or what's interesting, listen, I think Gator fans should have high expectations. Florida football should not accept being 6-6, 7-5, 8-4. Certainly, I'm not one to speak on Gator fans' expectations. They know far better than I do. But, you know, what's tough is you inherit a situation that in all kinds of weather, other Gators have talked about, like it was a mess. What Dan Mullen left over, it was a mess. And you're not getting a whole lot of time to build. And I understand you look at what Tennessee did in a short amount of time with Josh Heupel. You look at what Georgia's doing right now, and I know that's something that makes Florida fans cringe. You look at what Florida State has done under Mike Norvell. I will say, to their point, you got to give Billy Napier next year. You're not going to fire Billy Napier in the middle of a portal recruiting cycle. You're not going to do that. And maybe this is stating the obvious, but I think what this goes to show, guys, 2024 is it for Billy Napier. If they don't get it rolling, I think if Florida doesn't go, I know the schedule's brutal. Don't get me wrong. I get that. But if they don't go 7-5 or better, beat a rival maybe, I know they just beat Tennessee this year, but 7-5 or better. I think if it's less than 7-5, I think Billy Napier could very well be out of there. And it's interesting, man, to see the restlessness of Gator Nation grow. A program that, I mean, growing up, man, we all know, like, Florida football was elite. Florida football was what Georgia is practically right now and what Bama is right now. And so to see Florida football so down and out, to see Florida football reeling and unraveling, and I think Gator Nation, you got to give Billy Napier an opportunity to go out in the portal and land some guys. But losing ETN, and then, guys, I forgot to mention this, then you look on social media. And I know it's not the whole, right? It's far from the majority because every fan base has this group of idiots. Every fan base has them. But to see Gator fans going after ETN's mother, practically, getting in her mentions, getting in her quotes. And again, I know there's a lot of Gators that they will not condone that. They will not, so I'm not trying to say that's the majority. I don't think it is. But the way that fan base right now is unraveling at the seams is a spectacle amongst itself. And I just wonder how Billy Napier overcomes this, if he can. Unfortunately, guys, it's one of those things. We're in college football now. We're like fans, boosters, supporters. They make their mind up on you really, really, really quickly, right? Because, again, it's win now. You don't have 3, 4, 5 years. We're not saying, okay, well, let's let Billy Napier kind of grow into his own at the Florida job. If you're not winning by year 3 in Gainesville, Florida, you're out. You're out. And admittedly, guys, I just, based off what we've seen, based off what we know, I will be very, very, very surprised if Billy Napier is the head coach of the Florida Gators this time next year. What's going to happen with Scott Strickland? Their AD? I have no idea. I have no clue, right? That takes a lot more than just, hey, fans calling for the job. But if the Gators go 6-6 or worse, with all this off-field stuff happening, the portal, decommitments taking place in recruiting, guys, I simply don't see how Billy Napier survives it. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll spend the final 25 minutes or so taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails here on this Friday. Guys, all that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, December the 8th, 2023. With that being said, guys, the phone lines are open for your voicemails. We begin our daily mailbag segment, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails at 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Guys, I want to get to this text, by the way. Came into the show. We did not get to it. Texter, it's Trent. He said, try to call in last night. I think he was talking about Wednesday. Tried to call in last night. Just wanted to say I had the privilege of being at the game last night. While I'm glad the team in orange got the win, South Carolina fans need to get behind that team. For the first 30 minutes of the game, felt like the Gamecocks didn't make any mistakes and never got in their own way. Coach Paris is vastly beyond where he should be. Just over 1 year in, and it's beyond impressive. Love that game, feeling like it meant something. God bless Chris. Have a great one, and go Tigers. So, Clemson fan giving Gamecocks some props, and how about that? Anyways, guys, we're taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well. 843-790-3377. Our friend Graham Coffee, guys. He's a co-founder and publisher on dogcentral.com. Really interesting post here on the transfer portal. He says this, and this is a Georgia guy saying this. The portal/recruiting snowball effect is something to watch. There are some programs out there who recruited well all cycle but finished the season poorly. Then guys hit the portal and the prospects start wondering why. You can lose your program's foundation in under a week now. It really is something, to his point, I will say this. It really is something, guys, in college football now where it's like after you go 5-7, 4-8, whatever, you have a losing season, it's damage control. I mean, it's, you ask any great CEO or ask any CEO entrepreneur, what is your day-to-day? A lot of your day-to-day is putting out fires, right? When you have a small business, especially when you're first getting it off the ground, putting out fires and try to make sure nothing hits the fan, right? I mean, that's what you're doing. That's effectively, it's damage control. That's what it is. Because to his point, momentum is a fickle mistress, both positive and negative. And that negative momentum, I mean, it can break you. It can absolutely break you. So it's a tough world out there, man. Again, we're seeing it in Gainesville. We've seen a little bit of it in Columbia. We've seen, just some other schools deal with it. Arkansas. So Coach Ford comments on Facebook, says, Chris, all this NIL crap has to be put back into the bottle and reimagined. It's not fair to fire Napier or Beamer or any coach when their starting players are just bolting for cash. Then your record suffers. I have not criticized Beamer for the departure of players like Juice. I am much more interested in discussing the great recruits that repeatedly seem to not be able to contribute and move along. Either he's bad evaluating or bad developing. Well, Coach Ford, I mean, I think you have to keep this in mind too. Think about Coach Ford. You're not going to hit on every single recruit. Like, if you sign 25 guys, if you hit on, and when I say hit, they become big-time contributors, starters, if you will, SEC level ball players. Coach Ford, if you hit on half of them, you did really good in that cycle. You did really, really good. You're not going to hit on all of them. You're just not. You're not going to hit on all of them. Guys, let me fix the phone lines real quick. Okay, had to fix that. But back to what I was saying, Coach Ford, I mean, again, you're not going to hit on all of them. So, I don't look at it like you do, Coach Ford. I think, too, like you have to be very strategic when it comes to the portal. I mean, if you've got guys that aren't going to be contributors, they're not going to play, and like there's the whole portal out there, you can go out and add guys. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you tell guys, hey, like kind of like nudge guys out? That happens everywhere. It happens everywhere. Let's see. A lot of chatter, a lot of banter in regards to the college football playoff. And by the way, Coach Ford, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle when it comes to NIL. It's just not happening. Jay Diz, so Garnet Trust gave Mario a crap lowball offer, and by the time they came back with a decent offer, Mario had a new agent and offers from all over. Collectives of the recruiting coordinators now. Jay Diz, I don't know if that's exactly how it happened, but Jay Diz, you make a good point. I think Travis Allen made this yesterday. Yeah, I mean, the collectives are doing the recruiting at this point. They are. They just are. I mean, it's the coaches still have a large play in it for sure, but I would just say this: you can't have one without the other. Like you have to have both. If you're not bringing your bag with you on the recruiting trip, like, dude, nobody is going to a school for the love of the game anymore. It's just not happening. You know what I mean? It's just not happening. Justin Martin, Chris, why does Shane Beamer keep going after Ivy League players? He should have been going after Florida running back and FBS players. Justin Martin, I know a lot of people have this question. A lot of people are curious as to why. I think Shane Beamer and his staff feel confident they can go out there and identify talent and develop talent. And, it's very competitive, Justin. So, I mean, you're not going to get everybody. I think there's guys that they evaluate as really, really good players and guys that they feel can be an asset to their football team. But, Justin, to your point, I mean, listen, if South Carolina has another, and this should be a big weekend, right? I think the Gamecocks guys, if I had to predict it, I think they will land Rocket Sanders. I think he will be a Gamecock. I think it makes too much sense when you got Justin Stepp, Dabble, Loggins, Trey Knox just came over and I'd imagine had a successful experience. I would imagine they will land Rocket Sanders. But again, man, if it's another portal cycle where the Gamecocks are landing a lot of group of 5 FCS talent and they struggle again next year. So Justin, I will say this though, there are good players at lower levels, right? It happens. Do I think that South Carolina should do nothing but offer Ivy League guys and FCS guys? No, because it didn't work out well last year. But there are good lower level players. There are, you know what I mean? There are good lower level players. So, Jay Diz, how do the fans feel about the fact Garnet Trust and Carolina Rise decide who will play for us? If the collective doesn't like you, you don't get money. Garnet Trust went cheap on Mario. Now he's out. I mean, Jay Diz, though, I think the collectives like who Beamer likes. You know what I mean? I don't think it's like the collective's pick. I don't think that's, Bruin Nation says Justin's responding to Justin. A lot of teams are going after those kids. They're old, graduated veterans and give depth. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said to Bruin Nation's point about, adding a kid that has been in a program a while. Is just a positive addition to your program, to your football team. I think in the minor leagues, they call them, or even the majors, they call them clubhouse guys because not everybody's going to play. I mean, there's going to be 22 guys that play, but having quality depth, having quality people in your program, it is beneficial. Coach Ford, my question shows they can't develop. Again, Coach Ford, not every recruit at every school pans out. I mean, in your example, Coach Ford, every school sucks at developing because everybody's got a scout team, Coach Ford. Everybody's got a scout team. So some guys don't just want to run scout team for their career. Does that not make sense? I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. M. Colt, if your team's recruiting without money, they're wasting their time if they're pursuing 4- and 5-star recruits. Indeed. Bird Toffley, and he's scooping the LT Overton guy, number 1 recruit in 2022. Now he's looking at South Carolina. Yeah, he's visiting. I have no idea what type of shot they have at him. We'll see. I mean, do the Gamecocks have the NIL capacity to win some of these battles? I think that's going to be really, really interesting, right? Because we've heard for so long the NIL was a problem at South Carolina. So my biggest question with guys like LT Overton and, some of these others, I mean, do they have the NIL capacity to win these battles? That's the question. Right? How many of these battles can they afford to win? Guys, news: 4-star interior offensive lineman Cohen Eccles has decommitted from Texas A&M. Aggies continue to take hits. I mean, guys, I guess it's going to happen, though. It is going to happen when you change coaches. So, Andrew Armstrong returning for Arkansas. That is a big, big boost. There's a big boost for sure. Again, guys, taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails. We got a texter here, our good friend Robbie Davis. What's up, Chris? My prediction for the game tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, Gamecocks actually play East Carolina tomorrow. South Carolina 77, East Carolina 70. Okay. What, you guys are going to hate me for this, but what time? Let's see. Actually, I'm not even going to ask y'all. Let's look at the college basketball slate really quickly. That game is at noon on ESPNU, by the way. Noon tip on ESPNU. Let's see. The slate. Not a single game tonight, which is not surprising. Slate looks like this. Mississippi State, Tulane, 11:30 a.m. Eastern on SEC Network. Kentucky and Penn is a noon tip on ESPN2. South Carolina, East Carolina at ECU, by the way. Noon tip on ESPNU. Tennessee and Illinois, that's a top 20 matchup. That game in Knoxville, that's a noon tip on CBS. LSU on Kansas State, 1:30 on SEC Network. Purdue and Alabama. Wow. Bama on the road at number 4, Purdue. 1:30 tip on Fox. Indiana, Auburn. 2 o'clock tip on ESPN2. Oklahoma and Arkansas, 4 o'clock tip. That's in Norman on ESPN2. Florida, Richmond, 4 o'clock tip on SEC Network. And finally, Kansas and Mizzou, big rivalry matchup, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Strange tip-off time on ESPN. So there's some good college basketball on tomorrow. There's actually some really, really good college basketball on. Love to see it. Also, guys, on the women's side of things, 3 games tomorrow: A&M Robert Morris, Bama SF Austin, and Mizzou and Kansas State. And then on Sunday, you've got the Lady Vols, Tennessee, taking on Eastern Kentucky, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Tulsa, Florida, Louisville, Kentucky in a rivalry game. South Carolina takes on 11th ranked Utah. That game is at 2:30 on ESPN. That game is at Colonial Life Arena, by the way. Alabama takes on Samford, 3 o'clock tip on SEC Network Plus. Little Rock and Auburn, and then LSU takes on Louisiana. So it's a packed weekend of college basketball as we get closer and closer to SEC play. But, yeah. Exciting stuff, man. A lot of good basketball on the men's side tomorrow. A lot of good basketball. I don't even think I realized how much good basketball was on the men's side was happening tomorrow. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. About 10 minutes to go here on this Friday. Guys, again, thank you all so much. Appreciate you all. Thank you all, too, by the way. I want to say this to our live show audience specifically. Also, those tuned on the podcast, but especially the live show. You know, we talk a lot of SEC content, guys, and that's by design. And I think many of you that tune into this show on a day in, day out basis, right, you follow as closely as anyone, closer than anybody. You guys know why that's happening. You know that there are things that are going to be happening at some point, right? And I'm going to be very transparent with you all when we get closer to that time about what's going to happen. You know, I've dropped some hints here and there. I've talked about it openly and transparently for literally over a year. But I do want to say thank y'all for staying engaged, for staying tuned into the show. I'm really happy that the people that are fans of the Spurs Up Show are also fans of me just as a content creator, and that you're not just tuning in when it's convenient to, well, this is my favorite team. If this person's not talking about my favorite team, then I don't give a damn, like whatever. Like the beauty of it is, guys, is like we can all talk ball, and I'm someone that I'm wired I'm wired to where I don't just love the game because I like my team. You know what I mean? I don't just love the game because I'm a fan of a certain team. I love the game unconditionally. You know what I mean? Like whether it be baseball, basketball, football, the SEC, college sports as a whole. I love the game. So I just want to say thank you to you guys tuning in, staying engaged, right? Even when it's not about South Carolina, the beauties and the banter, doesn't matter what team it's about. And again, that is all by design, and there will be more about what I am saying very soon. Again, just wanted to say thank you all so much, man. It's means a lot. It really truly does mean a lot. So that being said, guys, we'll get back into your questions. Let's see. Ethan K says this on YouTube. All coaches know what they're signing up for now. If you're making millions as a head coach, you have the pressure, and if you aren't winning, people don't care about a popularity contest. Ethan K, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right from the standpoint of people have never cared less about the objectives and the obstacles. I say objectives, the obstacles, and they've never cared less about excuses, right? They just, let's call it for what it is. Either win or get fired. Like there's no, well, you got to keep this in mind and this, and somebody's got to pay. I mean, that's the way fans look at it. Somebody has to pay. Somebody must pay for what we witnessed on the field this year. And it just, so to your point, it's like, and we all know this, right? When people are well compensated in this world, the masses have no sympathy for people who are wealthy. The masses have no sympathy for people who are well off, who are successful even, have no sympathy, right? I mean, I learned that the hard way on these airwaves. That day that I was like, guys, you know that I love doing this, but I want to transition from 3 hours a day to 2 hours a day because of this, because I'm spreading myself thin, and dude, I had people in the comments, and you know what? Maybe I should have known better, but like no sympathy at all. And that's fine. That's fine. I get that. I should have known better, like I said, but it just goes back to like, there's no sympathy for these head coaches. You got to work 24/7, 365. Well, you're getting paid $6.5 million a year. Who gives a damn? Cry to someone else. So it's the being a head coach has never been more lucrative. It's also never been more unforgiving. We'll put it that way. It's either win or get out. Like nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear the excuses. Nobody wants to hear about this or that. No. Travi, let's speak on JBJ the GOAT. Happy retirement. Yeah, happy retirement to JBJ, Travi. I mean, yeah, man, I grew up watching Jackie Bradley Jr. with the Gamecocks. It's crazy to think about he's retiring. I mean, I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing when JBJ had the base knock against Oklahoma to keep the Gamecocks chances alive at winning a national title. And yeah, I mean, we all watched JBJ in 10 and 11, and it's crazy, Travis. You're giving me goosebumps because I'm, you know, man, like I'm going to be invested in basketball. Obviously, we get to SEC play, turn of the year. Like I'm never going to be a one-trick pony, as you guys know, and just be a football guy, even though football is king and it moves the needle. I love baseball, man. I mean, I love it. I truly love it. I love it for multiple reasons. Number one, I just love the game. I love the game itself. I love, you know, the SEC is as good as the SEC is in football, right? As good as it is in football. It's a different level in baseball. And now you add Oklahoma and Texas. Oh my goodness. I mean, the SEC was already by far the best baseball conference. And now you add an OU in Texas. So, you know, the pageantry, history, tradition, the level of play in the SEC. I mean, it's and then, dude, I love it from a content standpoint. Baseball season is where I really get the opportunity to separate myself as a content creator. It really is. It's because, you know, a lot of folks can talk football. I'm not calling anybody out, but like, you know what I mean? Like, talking football is very common, right? And I get why people talk about it 24/7, 365. You can build an entire business around just talking football year round. But I love other sports. I love other sports. I love talking baseball. I like talking basketball as well. But yeah, I can't wait for baseball season, man. I love it. It fuels me. I love SEC weekends on the diamond. I mean, it's a blast, man. So I'm looking forward to it. Guys, by the way, a quick content update. Next week, I know for sure we're not going live Thursday or Friday. Wednesday is 50-50, kind of up in the air. I'm not 110% sure yet. Monday, Tuesday, we'll go live. Also, guys, starting next week, probably Tuesday and Wednesday, we are going to do SEC bowl game simulations. We're going to simulate each of the 9 bowl games. So we will start next week with Texas A&M and Oklahoma State. We'll do Auburn, Maryland. That following week, which is the week of National Signing Day. Of course, signing day is on that Wednesday, the 20th, I believe it is. So the 18th is that Monday, if my math is correct here. I've actually got a calendar in front of me. The 20th is that Wednesday, the 18th is that Monday. That week, we will simulate basically the rest of the bowl games. We'll be live all week, the 18th to the 22nd. We're not going to take any time off there. I don't think, at least. I don't think we are. Again, guys, it's going to be a very by what's going on basis. Like, is there a lot going on? Is there not? Is it more of a dead time? If so, right, we'll make the call, whatever. I will keep you guys in the loop. The plan, though, is to be live that week, and then, of course, no show on the 25th, Christmas, which is my birthday as well. Happy early birthday to me. But it's Christmas Day, no show. The 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th, right? That Tuesday through Friday, those are all, I would say, TBD. I think the plan is on the 26th to do a simulation too. Again, a lot of this can change, guys. Again, I know you guys will roll with the punches. It's all good. But the big news is this. We are doing SEC bowl game simulations, period. There you go. We're doing bowl game simulations, and we're building up to the SEC bowl games, which start on the 27th. We got a game on the 27th. We've got 2 on the 29th, I believe. We've got 3 on the 30th, and then 3 on the 1st. And that week, guys, just FYI, some big news coming. And I'll leave it at that. Guys, you're on YouTube. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, be sure to subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, guys. The podcasts drop daily, and you can check us out there at the Spurs Up Show. Also, of course, guys, we're on social media, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And again, I already said that. I literally just repeated myself. Either way, though, you can check us out on social media as well. X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Literally anywhere and everywhere you get your content. Also, by the way, guys, the big thing tomorrow, Heisman Trophy ceremony. Jaden Daniels is going to win that. And if you think Michael Penix Jr. should win the Heisman, you sadly don't know ball. I hate to tell you. You sadly don't know ball. So, anyways, guys, I'm sure it's going to be a busy, busy weekend with, of course, basketball tomorrow, but the transfer portal, commitments rolling in, guys. Dude, the portal has created an environment in which 24/7, 365, it never stops, which, again, we love, because we all love college football and we all love content bleeding out the eyeballs, don't we? So, guys, that's going to do it. Hey, appreciate you all. Thank you all so much. It means the world, your love, your support, guys. Like I mentioned, thank y'all, man. Thank y'all so much. By the way, side note, a little bit of a shout out. Go Furman tonight. They're taking on Montana in Missoula, Montana in the FCS playoffs. Go Furman. Go Dens. Shout out to our guy, Dan Scott, the play-by-play voice of Paladin football that came on our show over the summer. Appreciate him doing that and pulling for Furman tonight, 9 o'clock kick out there in Montana. Going to be cold. Cold in Montana. Cold. Guys, that's going to do it. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Y'all have a fantastic weekend. And we will talk to you all on Monday.